I like that last movement, of the last beat of your dance. Good morning, Timothy.
Good morning, Maya. Good morning, everybody.
And good morning, everybody watching us or listening to us in Clubhouse, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. It's a pleasure to have you with us on December the 15th. It's mid-December and there are only about 2 weeks left of this year. Who can believe that time flies so fast, right? Yeah. Okay, and Timothy, very nice to see you again this morning, and thank you for being with us. To everybody who has just joined us, or will watch the recording of this video. Well, this is the 201st episode of Japanese Politics One-on-One delivered to you, by Timothy Langley, the CEO of Langley Esquire, the consultancy firm in government relations and public policy here in Japan. So if you haven't met him yet, I encourage you to reach out and connect with him on LinkedIn, or just send him an email via his website. Okay, Timothy, I'm not going to keep anybody waiting. This is a common refrain already. So let's start and dive into the,
Okay.
the events that happened during the week.
Thank you very much, Maya, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us every week. This is our 201st episode. We go every Sunday morning to talk about what's going on in Japanese politics. Today, I am reporting from beautiful Katsuyama. It is on the inside part of the Chiba Peninsula, about maybe an hour and a half drive from downtown Tokyo. I'm reporting from inside my car. I cannot report from inside the good shit Grimm's because the bandwidth is not very good there, and I don't like to report from inside the car because it's just so constricting. But it is cold outside, as you can kind of tell. So forgive me for doing that. A lot has been going on this last week in Japanese politics. You know that the budget, the supplemental budget, passed. The yen today is standing. It closed out on Friday at 153.86. It's starting to get a little bit weaker. It's a barometer read for what's going on in the rest of the economy. We always report on the dollar-yen ratio to talk about how this is impacting the government, trade values, that sort of thing. So it's a pretty important barometer. The diet passed the supplemental budget, almost 14 trillion yen to be injected into the economy in a very short period of time, within a span of about 4 months, to help people who are below not the poverty line, but who are suffering. Maybe they have 2 kids, only one person is working, or maybe it's a single parent, that sort of thing. This was pushed very hard by the Constitutional Democratic Party and the Democratic Party for the People, 2 opposition parties, which is really kind of counterbalancing the minority government held by the LDP and the Komeito Party. So they were able to pull together even the opposition forces to pass this supplemental budget. This is part, maybe 2 of this process that is encapsulated in what we are in now, which is an extraordinary diet session. It will go until the 21st, which is just next week, next Saturday. The diet will end. And so they're trying to push through the commitments that the prime minister gave. And I'm going to go into a little bit more explanation of that. You remember the prime minister when he went to Peru and he went to Buenos Aires for the G20. On his return, he wanted to go see Donald Trump. He could not do that. There was a lot of different reasons given for that. Since then, the leaders of several nations have visited with Trump, even though his excuse was, "I can't see you, Mr. Ishiba. I know you're very important to the United States. We can't do it until I become president." Well, it looks like Miss Akie Abe she's in Mar-a-Lago today. She received an invitation to go to Mar-a-Lago. She's not the prime minister. She's not even the prime minister's wife. She's the wife of the former prime minister, Mr. Abe, who under so many pundits have said, this relationship between Donald Trump and Mr. Abe was so close. They were so tight. They were real brothers. But it is true that they did have a kinship of sorts. And so the fact that Miss Abe is in Mar-a-Lago today is pretty interesting, and something might come out of that, maybe as an emissary for the prime minister to meet with the the president or the president-elect, we're not sure. As we're going through this diet process, we've finished the supplemental budget passage, and now we move on to new business in the parliament. And the ethics committee from the lower house and the ethics committee in the upper house will now start quizzing all of the mostly LDP members who put money into their pocket that created this whole brouhaha that flipped over the government and put the LDP in a minority position for the first time in 25 years. Excuse me. So the ethics committee reports will be going out this next week, and it is expected to be pretty contentious. It's also interesting, when this story first came out that the LDP was taking funds from political donations and distributing it to members of the party or the faction, it turns out that there's now an investigation with the Tokyo metropolitan government that the LDP members there have been doing the same thing. So it looks like it was a process or a technique or a tactic in order to keep the LDP going strong and for the members to be able to enrich themselves in a quasi-legal way. It looks like it wasn't restricted just to the LDP, so you're going to be hearing some more news about that. That is a pretty big blockbuster piece of news. Mr. Suga was supposed to be in South Korea today. This has been planned for several weeks. Mr. Suga, former prime minister, was going to go to help enrich and push forward this relationship between Japan and South Korea that has been going pretty strong under the Kishida and Suga administrations, now with Mr. Ishiba. And because of the impeachment that was just announced yesterday of President Yoon, and because of other reasons, he's canceled that visit. You might remember Lloyd Austin was in Tokyo last week, his fourth trip to Japan, and he was supposed to also go to South Korea. He also canceled that. The draft of the 2026 budget is now being formalized. This process continues. It's like clockwork. Towards the end of the year, the government of Japan pulls together all of the ministries. They get their requests for the budget. They put it together, and they must do this by the end of the year, because when the diet starts in January, that's what they're going to be talking about. And that budget is now being finalized these next couple of days to be submitted in the new diet next year. And some of the biggest issues there are, how are they going to pay for the military budget? That's been discussed, but it hasn't been really revealed in great detail. They have to do that. They've also decided to raise the ceiling of tax-free salary from 1,003 million per individual, below which they don't pay a tax. And because they received some sort of a commitment with the Democratic Party for the People to raise that, that they need to figure out how they're going to pay for that too. That will go into next year's budget as well. Anyway, there are a lot of other things going on. I don't want to take up too much time just hitting these. There's a lot going on politically too that I want to get into in a little bit more detail. But before I do, let me just turn it over to you, Maya, so that you can talk about our wonderful sponsor.
Thank you very much, Timothy. Yes, I will be very brief about this, and I want to say a very, very heartfelt thank you to our first sponsor, Kanchu, that is Kanagawa Chuo Jutaku, and well, for short, it is Kanchu. You can find them at kanachu.com, and Kanchu offers bilingual services in the field of property management and investment property. If you want to work with them, please contact James Howell, or you can also contact Hana Howell. James is available at james@kanachu.com, and Hana is available at hana@kanachu.com. So they will meet you, they will talk with you either in English or Japanese and see how they can help you with your project. So thank you very much for this, Timothy. And I know that we have a lot of details to discuss today, because even though we're getting close to the end of the year, there is a lot really happening, as you already let us know. So I'm giving you the screen, and
okay.
Yes,
Thank you very much. Before we roll into the formal presentation, Maya, We did a briefing on Thursday of this last week on autonomous vehicles. That
Yes.
was a policy report. We do that from time to time. My company does that, Langley Esquire, talking about policies, different things that are really have implications for business and for trade and for investment and for where technology is. This briefing that we gave, Maya, was about what, 25 minutes long. It was one of the longer briefings that we've given,
Yeah.
but it's available on the Langley Esquire YouTube page. Where else is it available, Maya?
Yes, it is available on the LinkedIn account of Langley Squire. Of course, if you cannot find those links, please let us know. We will send you the links and you will be able to see the whole briefing. It is a 25-minute briefing. It is about autonomous vehicles and the latest changes in the legislation here in Japan. So
Mhm.
this is an area that is going to grow from now on. Although some people find it controversial, we do not say what is good and what is bad about it. We just give you the opportunities and also the challenges that come from the changes in the legislation.
Yes.
Yes.
So here on this show in this Japanese Politics 101, we typically focus on what's going on in politics that's relevant and that's important for you on a weekly basis. But also there's policy that's being considered, and the Japanese government is moving at a really significant rate. But you just don't hear about it until it's right in front of your face. So these policy briefings are important for the people who are forward looking. They're involved in research and development, and also significant trade partners with Japan. So please take a look at that. I hope you enjoy it, and it teaches you something about where Japan is soon going to be with driverless vehicles. It's a big deal.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, Maya.
Yes, please do. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this last week, it's been rather unsettling. China has really began to increase its military drills. The military drills throughout the Taiwan Straits has essentially walled off those straits because of the amount of and the intensity of the drills that are going on there. So it is somewhat of a sensitive time. You're not hearing much about that in the news, but you're going to hear about that here. It's something of great significance what they're going to do. The other thing that's rather unsettling too is what's going on in South Korea. So South Korea is an important linchpin with the Japan-U.S. relationship. The three parties, they're the largest allies in this region, and the fact that things are not going so well for Mr. Yoon, who was very popular with the Biden administration. There was some great progress that was being made in mending this fence between Japan and South Korea, and now with this, there was a failed impeachment attempt last week, and then it was reinitiated, and it succeeded yesterday. He is impeached. Last week, they also announced that he will be restricted from traveling outside of the country. So, I mean, he was in a delicate position from the beginning. He won by a very, very small margin. And then when the election of the single House legislature occurred earlier in the year, his party, the PPP, failed to secure a majority of the vote. So he's essentially been a lame duck president. And as a result of that, they've just been ramping up to try and pincer him, get him in a bad position. He felt he was in between a rock and a hard place. He initiated martial law maybe 12 days ago. It lasted for 6 hours, and everything just began to collapse after that. So there's a lot of turmoil that's going on there, very worrying. I think, and the opposition party has insisted that the only way to calm things down and to move forward is to impeach him, which they successfully did yesterday. Contributions to the political funds is a big issue. It is being considered by the Diet now. The process that we just finished in passing the supplemental budget begins to release the Diet for focusing on other issues too. And one of the big issues is how they're going to revise, as the Prime Minister promised. If you make me Prime Minister, I'm going to revise the political contributions control act so that this thing that happened with the Abe faction and these the slush funds and that sort of thing, it's not going to happen because we're going to revise the law. So it's a political commitment of him. It relies on three legs. One is the corporate donations and how those donations are received. The LDP, that's their bread and butter. Other parties collect funds different ways, but probably a lot of it is through donations, their member donations, corporations. The Japanese Communist Party sells their flagship newspaper, the Akahata, which is very, very popular, very well read, and that's how they generate their revenue. But with regard to the LDP, they get it from corporate donations and from running Benkyo Kai, study groups, that sort of thing. That is the first leg. The second leg is transparency, that money that comes in should be reported. There was a fund there that members of the LDP within the factions would be receiving money from the party, and they didn't have to report how they were spending it, sometimes maybe 1 million yen. And they could spend that any way they wanted to. It was for LDP and political development, political education, but there was no obligation to report on that. So they want to put a cap on that, and this activity fund needs to be either completely removed, or at least the funds need to be disclosed. So that's the second leg. And then the third one is, in order to ensure transparency is even throughout the parties, and violators would be captured, or there's a responsibility to report and be concise and honest about it, is setting up a third party monitoring organization. So that could either be within the Diet structure, or a third party that they hire, maybe, I don't know, Dentsu or one of the big three, to form a separate entity to review this. That's under discussion right now. It's a hotly fought issue because the LDP doesn't really want to revise it, but the prime minister has promised that he would, and the opposition parties are really hammering the prime minister on that. And there's only 1 week left in the Diet session, so there was some talk that the Diet would be extended. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think with the passage of the supplemental budget, all of the opposition parties received some concession from the LDP. The LDP gave lots of concessions so that they could pass that. And those concessions either are immediate, they're part of the supplemental budget, or they're going to be more apparent in the new Diet. So the prime minister basically made lots of concessions to keep things calm and to keep the LDP going smoothly and make the Diet session and this extraordinary Diet session go smoothly. It actually went a little bit smoother than most people had predicted. They thought it would be much more contentious, but there was a lot of give and take given. And we move into a more contentious period right now, especially this next week. I'm going to get into the schedule of that later in this briefing. But the Political Funds Control Act is a big issue. It's not the only thing that's going to be happening before this Diet ends. And I think it's just too contentious. It probably won't pass, or it'll pass with people still being disappointed with it. You might have heard also in other news that President-elect Trump invited Premier Xi to join the inauguration of him becoming president in January. I think it's January 15th or 17th, something like that. I think Mr. Xi has declined that just because politically it's not a great idea. Typically in an inauguration, ambassadors from all of the countries are invited. They have a front row seat at the inauguration. I think it was a clever tactic by Mr. Trump to invite Xi, but probably if he says yes, it goes one way. If he says no, it goes another way. But probably nothing to lose in terms of President Trump. But that is still moving forward in this action that's going on in the Taiwan Strait. Maybe it mollifies it just a little bit, but that's still a very hot issue. I want to talk just a little bit about the process that we're in with the extraordinary diet session so that you know where we came from and where we're going. So initially, the prime minister, he went to the G20, he went to APEC in Peru. He came back, he made a policy speech to both houses of the Diet. I think that was on a Friday. So the Diet opened up. Everybody who received their Diet badges was in attendance, the new Diet members. He made a policy speech, no questions. It's just like the State of the Union. And then the following week, which was 2 weeks ago, he has an opportunity for the opposition parties to come up to the podium and to make a statement too. So he would make a statement, they would come in and make a statement about what he had said, and there was no real question and answer going on. That goes for about 2 days, and then the tail end of that, they go into the question and answer that the opposition party has, where there is a little bit of give and take, and that's with the upper house and the lower house. The week after that, which is this last week, finally they go into the budget hearings because they're going to pass a supplemental budget. And now it's really time for rock and roll. The prime minister is in attendance with his cabinet. If questions are being posed to some of these cabinet members, then they will be in attendance too. It's the largest meeting room in the Diet, besides the plenary session room, which is the largest room there, with all of the members of the lower house having chairs there. But this Diet, the budget committee meeting, is the largest committee meeting room. And here it's depending on who's the questioner, the prime minister or whoever the question is being directed at, they do have an opportunity to stand up and answer the question, and then there's a follow-up. So previous to this week, there's no opportunity to follow up and to challenge and to kind of follow a train of thought or to question how the question was answered by, for example, the prime minister. But that's what happened this week. It happens in the upper house. The lower house members also participate. And in this process, the supplemental budget is also being considered. So there's a supplemental budget that is being offered, and they have to vote on it. And in the budget committee, this is where basically the decisions on how certain things are included in the budget or taken out of the budget are decided, and it's basically by politics. So the prime minister was really getting hammered, not only by members of the opposition party that you might expect, but also by some of the members of the LDP on what his policies are going to be doing and how he's intending to go forward. And in the back rooms, they have different conversations going. Well, we'll vote for the proposal, the supplemental budget, this way, if you do this, or if the question revealed that you're thinking about that and we oppose that, but we might vote for the supplemental budget. So they have to pass that budget by more than 51%. The LDP and Komeito don't have that 51%, so they need to get somebody else in, and that process is what occurred all this last week, where lots of questions and answers. It was all televised and watched very carefully. So they passed the budget on Thursday. And so now we move into the next issue, which is going to happen this next week. So the supplemental budget, one of the key motions for the extraordinary session was set up because of setting up a supplemental budget. There are other issues that are tagged onto that. One of those is a controversial public campaign finance disclosures and the things that we were talking about just earlier. So one of the things that is going to happen this next week, there are a couple of things with various committees, but one of them is the lower house ethics committee is now going to start their discussions, and it is mirrored by the upper house ethics committee too. So they're separate committees. And in the lower house, the prime minister has said to cleanse the LDP, the members who put money into their pocket from the violations of the campaign and the slush funds, and which started all of this. Although we know who they are and how much they've had, not everybody has had an opportunity to be questioned. So to show our honesty and to show our determination to clean this, these members, the people who signed up for this participation in this slush fund, now will be questioned in the lower house. And so there are 15 members who receive this. They will be questioned on the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th. So there'll be different days. And the prime minister has said, if you're not going to participate in this question and answer period, then the LDP will have to exercise some retributions. The way that they've worked out the negotiations is the members show up, they are self-proclaimed, they're not under oath, and it is not televised. So this coming up week, you're going to hear a lot about the slush funds, how it was used, and how it was managed. And it'll be through third parties, so it won't be the basic testimony. Similarly, in the upper house, there are 23 members of the upper house who also participated. The upper house is a little bit more important this time because the next elections that are coming to us are going to be upper house elections, and probably a little bit more than 50% of the people who of this 23 number, they're up for a re-election. So in the upper house, there's an election for 50% of the house every 3 years. So every 3 years, 50% go up for a re-election. The other 50% are still in their 6-year term. So it's a staggered amount. So the upper house hearings will occur all of this week. That's a lot of people, 23 members. And the LDP has been very firm on this. If you're called to testify and you don't, the LDP will not support you in the election that's coming up this summer. So you can anticipate an awful lot that's going on with that. So we move on now to the ethics and the political reform. And the 9 parties have submitted their own bills for political reform. So there are basically 10 political parties. Each of them have submitted their own bill for the political reform. So they need to mesh that out. It's just a messy, long process. Even with the supplemental budget, that took 2 weeks of going back and forth, a lot of horse trading. Even before the diet started, they were working on that. So political reform is a whole lot more different, and you've got the LDP, which is really sticking to its guns. There will be some changes there, and that decision will come out. We'll be able to report on it this time next week. Let me see what else we've got here. There was a opinion poll that was announced that was carried on last week. This was done by GG Press. GG Press, when they do their opinion polls, it's a little bit on the harsh side with regard to the government, the LDP. But they said that the prime minister's rating is down. It's about 26.8%. A fall of about 1.9 points, almost 2 points since the last poll was taken. Every month, Gigi will do this press. Their disapproval of Mr. Ishiba personally is down 3 points. Is up 3 points to 41.8%. So that means 41.8% are disapproving of Mr. Ishiba and his policies, his performance, that sort of thing. So by party, this is pretty amazing. When they question people, they say, which party do you support? The numbers are pretty revealing, because they tell you that the Japanese public is rather fickle. It really doesn't put a whole lot of weight on the political parties. They want to be shown, they want to be convinced of what is going on when they make their votes. So a lot of them are just holding back, but the LDP support is standing at about 19.1%. It's down just a bit of a fraction since the last one. The Constitutional Democratic Party is next in line. It receives a 6.7% support rating. The Democratic Party for the People taking a little bit of a hit because of the Tamaki kerfuffle. That's at 5.7%. Komeito is at 4.3. Ishin is at 2.5. Reiwa is at 1.6. The Communist Party is at 1.5. Sanseito is at 0.6%. The Conservative Party and the Social Democrats are both at 0.4% public opinion poll rating approval. With regard to Mr. Tamaki, who took a bit of a break, a 3-month break from being the leader of the Democratic Party for the People, he will just sit in the back seat. He won't take the leadership role. On March 3rd, he is reported to come back. He hasn't specifically said that, but apparently that's the deal that was cut. When the opinion poll came out, 36.3% of the people polled said he should resign, whereas 38.4% said, "Nah, he's okay. He should stay. This sexual kerfuffle that he was in is not that big a deal. After his penance of 3 months, he should come back and continue to lead his party." There's much more going on. I think it'll be revealed in our Q&A period, Maya, but I wanted to zoom through this very quickly so that we could get to the Q&A. That's where most of the heat and light is always produced in our briefing. So with that, let me close up my particular comments and move on to the Q&A portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Well, that was really a very informative briefing. Once again, thank you for putting all these points together. And yes, I would like to start with the first comment, but before that, let me say once again thank you to our sponsor, Houze Inc. And Houze Inc. once again offers bilingual services, and they work in the field of custom home design, construction, and renovations. They also do commercial building construction. So if you have any projects in mind about in these fields, please contact Hana Howell. She will be there. You can contact her also at hana@kanachu.com, or connect with her on LinkedIn and reach out to her there. So a huge thank you to Houze Inc. as well. And let's continue with the questions. Well, as always, and I'm very grateful for that, we have the first question from Byron. Byron, thank you very much.
Here we go.
Yes, here we go. And if you can ever join us live or probably in Clubhouse and talk with us, please do not hesitate to do that. We would love to talk with you directly as well. So, Timothy, are you ready for the question? It's a little bit long, yes, but it's a great question actually. So we go here. Both the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration appear to have given thumbs down already for Nippon Steel's to acquire U.S. Steel. What were the errors made in that approach by Nippon Steel, and what might have been done better? If you do not want to comment on the efforts of other consultants at this time, please convert the conversation into a generic one on mergers and acquisitions between Japanese and American companies.
Okay, that's really a very rich, deep question. Let me see if I can go at it a little bit differently. Lobbying in the United States is performed mostly by law firms. And in Japan, no law firm does lobbying. They might say that they do it or they pretend to do it, but law firms usually do straight legal work here. They don't do kind of a dual process there. A lot of law firms in the United States provide a wide range of services, PR, consulting, that sort of thing. And they're usually packed with a lot of really bright people, but that's the way law firms are formed there. So I don't know who they hired as their consultant. And some of the consulting firms are, for example, somebody that was in the administration. It was a Republican administration, and now it's a Democratic administration. And the person who was maybe a a cabinet minister or somebody powerful in one of the ministries sets up his shop to be a consultant or a lobbyist. So that happens pretty frequently, and that might have been what had happened in the Japan Steel case. The foreigners can go in. I used to work for a law firm that was predominantly a lobbyist for the foreign concerns who were being hammered by the Commerce Department for dumping, for trade law violations. So I'm not too familiar with that, but the result is not going the way the client wanted it to. You never know if, in fact, what the outcome is going to be. It's very expensive work. And sometimes when you get into it, and I've been involved in these situations many times before too, the client only has a certain amount of budget to achieve a certain result. And as this process continues going forward, they realize this issue is far more important. So we need to put more money into it. But initially, when they came up with the scope of the project and the amount of money invested into it, there are certain tactical and strategic decisions that are made based on that. And when the issue becomes even more important or more political, or it looks like you're going to lose it, and your board has said, no, we can't lose it, you need to put more money into it, those decisions were made earlier, and you have to live with those decisions. It's very difficult to turn around on that. And sometimes clients just don't pay the right amount of money to get the result that they want until it's too late. So I think maybe that's part of it too. But also the timing couldn't have been very good for Japan Steel, because they put a lot of emphasis on developing this relationship with the Biden administration. And if Ms. Harris took over from the Biden administration, then whatever goodwill they were able to generate typically survives. In the current situation, whatever investment they had politically is going to disappear with the Trump administration. So I think that's one of the other complications, that they probably, maybe they game planned for it, but I think this is just one example. There are thousands of other examples where people are trying to lobby the government, trying to get their product into the market, or they're trying to modify the way regulations are applied to a certain product or services. It's the same thing that happens in this economy too. The amount of goodwill and the amount of research and just being familiar with the people who are guiding that policy on the government side, when there's a change in government, it really is very disruptive. So, and both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump have said they're not going to let a critical industry like U.S. Steel be sold to a foreign interest. Both of them said that, and particularly in Trump's case, make America great again, focus on America, focus on American workers. And it's just antithetical to have a foreign company buy such a critical infrastructure, if that's your philosophical bend. So it's not so surprising. But they wanted to close this deal by the end of this year. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. The year, like you said, we've got 2 weeks left, and with that much kind of negative press with regard to the sale out there, it doesn't look like it would happen. And even if it did happen with some sort of a tactic or a technique with the Biden administration, if Mr. Trump doesn't agree with it, he can stymie it and just make it, even though it might have been a successful closure, just to damage it so that it can't work, because he wasn't fully apprised of it or advised of it.
Right. Well, while I understand the arguments you just laid out, Timothy, I still think that the best foreign, let's say, foreign investors are still the Japanese when it comes to large industries. And this is a very different angle, actually. It comes from the understanding of how the Japanese actually go about business and how they set predominantly long-term goals, right? And they tend to be quite considerate of the local markets. Not quite, they are very considerate of the local market. So to me, it is still surprising that the deal is not going to go through. If U.S. Steel needs help, financial help and support and so on, and if the government of the United States is not ready to provide that, maybe the second best option is really Japan, Nippon Steel. But yeah, there are so many things to be considered here, and
Well,
it's difficult. Yeah,
the government shouldn't be that involved, but the fact is that it's a critical industry. It's
indeed, yes.
but if the government wasn't that involved, it's usually what the price is for the shares and the negotiation with the union, and is everybody predominantly in agreement that these new owners are going to come in and it's going to benefit everybody. And I think that there's a lot of controversy there. So there are two parties that are fighting it: the people and the unions and the industries that don't want the whatever the company to be sold to a foreign interest, no matter what the arguments are, and then those that are for it. So in the latest news, Nippon Steel, Japan Steel came in and offered the workers $5,000 if they vote for the approval of this transaction. So
Wow.
it's not like bribery. It feels or it smells like
Yeah,
bribery, but
feels like bribery.
yes,
Mm.
it's the union is opposing it. The union doesn't want. Well, I think some in the union, different unions for different components of the business, but there are some people that say yes, having more technology, having higher pay, they're going to do different things for us than U.S. Steel is doing for us. So let's let those guys have a chance. But if I'm going to get $5,000 if the deal goes through as a worker, that's pretty attractive. So the opposition that I normally had, my union bosses have told me that there'll be something in it for us, and let's go ahead and take down our opposition. So it's a very, very big fight.
Right. Well, and I can say, yeah, probably there is the managerial styles, as you say, the big fight there, and that, I mean, on top of the fact that it is a national interest, it's quite a lot of, quite a lot of things to be considered there. Okay, thank you very much for this. And now we're moving on to LinkedIn again. Once here we've got Manabe-san. Manabe-san, good morning once again, and thank you for watching. So Manabe-san wrote a comment while we were talking about the supplementary budget. And he writes, large policy fund will be included in the supplemental budget. So I wonder whether you have information about that at the moment, or maybe we can talk about this next time, Timothy.
What's
What
the
kind
name of it?
No, it's just a general comment about policies, large policy fund. We don't, so that's my question actually to you. If you have information, because the budget is about to be passed, right? And maybe there isn't enough information about what will be covered by the supplementary budget.
Oh, okay. So no, we know what's going to be covered by the supplementary budget.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's passed, so it's all written down. The bureaucrats have all chewed it up. They know what money is going where. I think Manabe-san's question is about a particular part, and I'm not sure what he's getting at. But
Yeah. Mm.
if I understand that a little bit better, then yeah, sure. Next week we can talk about what that funding is and what are the parameters of it. But I don't think he's talking just overall about the supplementary budget, is he?
No, I imagine it's about the new policies, I imagine, and policies that will be developed
Okay.
by the
So,
current government. Yes.
okay, if that's the question, yes, there was horse trading that was done. And if you accept the supplementary budget as we have proposed it, then in the national budget coming down in January and that needs to be passed in April, we're going to give you a concession there. So yes, there was some horse trading that was done there. And in order to get the budget passed, people received either somewhat immediate concessions, or some of the concessions are longer term. And with regard to the moving the floor of the tax-free salary from 1.03 million per year to 1.78. The Democratic Party for the People did receive a concession there, and that concession won't be evident to them until the budget is passed in April. And so as a consequence of receiving that commitment, that promise, they signed off on it. With regard to the Ishin's main point was, we want to have free education. We've told people who are voting with Ishin, people who are Ishin members, that we're going to work hard to support you, and one of our issues is free education. So they received a concession on free education. And the Constitutional Democratic Party was yet a different issue. It was, all the money that's being spent, why don't you spend more money for the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa-ken? They're suffering. They need more. That needs to be more dedicated to them, and they received that concession. So I guess there's within Ishikawa, maybe the Constitutional Democratic Party has a lot of members there, and or maybe just philosophically they're saying, the LDP and the government has abandoned those people in the worst area in Japan. They got hit by a massive earthquake a year and a half ago, and they're still suffering. Get with it. And so they received some concessions on that as well. But once again, when we come down to brass tacks, how is that going to be paid? And that's the issue that the LDP has to consider in the new Diet session starting in January.
Right, yes. Okay, thank you. Moving on, then once again we have another comment and a question on LinkedIn from Jean-Sebastien Boire. Thank you very much for watching, Jean-Sebastien, and it is once again on the topic of the acquisition.
Okay.
The US Steel. So Jean-Sebastien writes, bouncing on Byron Johnston's question, aside lobbying, the topic was highly covered in the media in an emotional way as well.
Yeah.
Is it something that Japanese companies should take into account in such situations?
Okay. Who's this from?
This is from Jean-Sebastien Boire.
So I don't know quite what you're talking about, but I think I get your drift. For the first time this week, I heard a comment that, Japan Steel was employing POWs during the war. And as a consequence of that, they shouldn't be allowed to come in and purchase US Steel. That's the first time I heard that. So I think maybe that's what you're talking about, that some of these subliminal, these deeper issues, they only come up in these kinds of issues. And yeah, it's I guess it's somewhat unfortunate. I thought that we had moved beyond that. But some people, when they want a result, they, anything is fair in this kind of business. So maybe they're pulling that out. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but yes, it's a very, very contentious issue. Japan Steel really wanted to buy US Steel. They thought that there was a lot that they could do. They could bring better technology to US Steel. They could enhance their footprint, and they could be more participating in what they anticipate to be a boom market in the United States. They really wanted a piece of that. And so they put their money down for it. And I think the reason why it's not passing, it's not just because of the economics. I think it's the political implications as well. I hope that hits some of the targets of your question. But if not, please come back to us and we'll deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah, I also think it's a good question because, maybe looked from a slightly different angle, it tells you how important the public relations are for any company that would like to acquire another one. And probably Nippon Steel did not really work very well in this field. And I don't know again whether they're the company they're using to lobby the U.S. government for this acquisition M&A. Whether they did any PR, public relations at all, but it tells me that because of all those articles and the coverage in the media that has been mostly negative, and I talk about the United States. So probably there was more to be done there. There was more to be desired in terms of public relations on the side of Japan Steel. I don't know what your take on this is.
Well,
Again.
The more I think about it, the more I think that probably this project has been going on for years, and the company that they hired probably has a U.S. ambassador on its board,
Mm-hmm.
a U.S. ambassador to Japan,
Okay.
right? And I'm not talking about the immediately past uh, uh, ambassador who is now a U.S. senator. I don't think he's in that business, but a previous ambassador that they've utilized to kind of leverage that. And these guys, when they finish public service, they're in for making money, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to take all of the components of that, and you've got to imagine they're really clever, they're smart, they get paid to forward think these things. So I can't imagine that they didn't um, consider a marketing and a PR component as one of the large components there. But we never heard about that until it just got contentious. We didn't hear about U.S. Steel being potentially purchased by Nippon Steel, until maybe like 6 or 8 months ago, when it first became an issue. But it's been in the project phase for at least 3 years.
Right, and we have a comment from Manabe-san here about this. The US has an effective ecosystem that doesn't exist in Japan.
Yeah,
The
that's true.
system, yes, the
Yeah,
system consists of law firms, lobbying, research institutes, etc. The government and bureaucrats just aren't good at taking advantage of them.
yeah.
And right, probably there is a big chunk of that as well. So thank you very much for the input, Manabe-san. There is a comment and a question from Yuka. Yuka, I'm so happy to have you back with us. I know that you have been busy recently, and thank you very much for coming back even though you keep busy. So thanks for another great session. Mrs. Akie Abe, the widow of the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, is set to meet with President-elect Donald Trump on December 15, 2024. For Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, does this meeting highlight the challenge in establishing his own rapport with the incoming US administration? What do you think, Timothy?
You could write a book about this. So
Right.
um,
Yeah.
one of the things that the Ishiba administration did was send an emissary to Washington, D.C. to begin to line this up, to see, can Mr. Ishiba meet with the president-elect? And we didn't know he was going to be the president-elect until the election was finished. So it was maybe you might remember that Mr. Aso went to Washington, D.C., attempted to meet with Mr. Trump, was unsuccessful in doing that. And then they sent somebody else just more recently, maybe 3 weeks ago, to attempt to line something up. And I think from inside sources that I've received, that was not very well received. It wasn't so well done. It's the same thing that Mr. Manabe said, that they're just not very good at this. They don't send the right kind of person. They don't do it the right kind of way. And the result that is generated is something that would be expected. Mr. Abe was successful because he went by himself. He went directly to the Trump headquarters in New York to meet with Trump. And that meant something to the president-elect. And that formed the basis of that relationship. The fact that, and I haven't heard that Akie is going to meet with the president-elect. I think for sure she would meet with Melania and maybe go to some of the events, but that Mar-a-Lago is it's basically a White House outside of the White House. There's so much that's being done there. And having 10 or 15 minutes with the president-elect is a pretty big deal. But I guess if it was me or you, the widow of your friend who was running Japan, yes, I'm going to say hello to her. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have a cup of tea with her. So I don't know what that is yet. We should know, because I think they've already, if they're going to meet, they already met, because it's already the time for them to have met
Or maybe
last night.
or maybe not yet. Oh, but okay. Well, one thing actually that I think there is something here in well, which we can also mention is that. Of course, they send missionaries, right? And it's not the person, the prime minister himself, even though there was an attempt by Mr. Ishiba to meet the president-elect. But the thing is also, maybe you can give us another insight. So we know that Mr. Ishiba is also very well known as one of the biggest critiques of Mr. Abe. And he has made a career out of that as well. So I wonder, of course,
Maybe. Yeah.
in politics, we want to believe that personal feelings and grudges do not actually influence what happens. But we have seen through these briefings as well that there is a lot of personal,
Sure.
sometimes bad blood, and sometimes friendships and so on, personal affairs that affect what is happening. So I wonder whether this image of Mr. Ishiba has contributed to what is happening right at the moment.
Well, it's hard to say. Mr. Trump did meet the governor of the 51st state of Canada. You'll remember.
Hmm.
So he did meet with Justin Trudeau, but he didn't meet with Mr. Ishiba, and that
Yeah.
is that is somewhat concerning if you're in the Ishiba administration. Why this would happen or how we could have turned it, but I think Mr. Trump is surrounded by a large cadre of very smart, very intelligent people who are integrated into a lot of different parts, integrated into Japan as well. And they just made a decision. He's the leader of a minority government. He probably has maybe 6 more months before he's out, or 5 more months. Look at my watch. And so they're reading that and they're saying, there are other things to do, and he's not. It's not a long-term relationship. So we can pass on that and maybe form a better relationship with the individual that we have identified as the next best replacement for this guy. That's the
Hmm.
relationship that we want to focus on.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for this. And it looks like we have gone through all the questions. There is one comment now that came now from Hiroko-san, and it is about the Hyogo, the earthquake, that people there are still struggling. And obviously, it was, in response to what you told us about the budget, the supplementary budget. Yes. And okay, and then we've got one more comment from Hiroaki on YouTube that came in, but I think it's unfinished. So Hiroaki-san writes, media reported that Trump team is planning Mr. George Glass, former ambassador to Portugal, for the next U.S. ambassador to Japan. So what is your comment on this?
Who is it?
This
Glass? Did he?
Mr. George Glass, who is
Yes.
former ambassador to Portugal. So they're planning to send Mr. George Glass to
Maybe.
Japan. Hmm.
Maybe he was also considered before they sent Bill Haggerty. He
Right.
also was a consideration. So it wouldn't be terribly unexpected for Mr. Glass to be appointed. I just hope that they send a really great ambassador. We need a great ambassador. And I think with the Trump administration in particular, there's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of turmoil. There's going to be a lot going on in this region with Taiwan. Who knows if this military kind of tightening that's going on in Taiwan right now is going to continue, what's going to go on with North Korea. There's a lot of concern now about what, in fact, did the North Koreans get from Russia for sending 10,000 troops to Ukraine, many of them to die, right? So what did North Korea receive as a consequence of that? What kind of military assets or capabilities did they receive that they don't have now? And when are we going to see that play in the theaters that we are sitting in right now? So the region is really fraught with a lot of tension, and with the new incoming president, there's a lot to be anticipated. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think by all accounts, the president-elect is already running what's going on in the United States. He's treated as the leader of the nation already when he travels. And I just really am very hopeful that the administration will send us a really terrific ambassador, and we can get really back to good business and good diplomacy here.
Indeed. Okay, thank you very much for this. And that's all for the moment, it seems. I know you're eager to go. You're eager to sit down and start writing your book. I know that.
Yes. Thank you. So today, it's a beautiful day. I'm not going to take the boat out for sailing, but you can see Mount Fuji. I don't know if you can see it from this perspective. Can you see?
Yes,
But she
beautiful.
is right there, just across the
Right.
water.
Yes, yes.
And
Oh,
where I have my boat berthed, where I will be riding, yeah, I can see Mount Fuji every day. It's just glorious. So
wonderful. Yes,
happy to
but
share that with you.
thank you very much for that. And thank you for sharing every Sunday morning with us as well. Well, it's very much appreciated. And also, I know that you'll be here next Sunday again. So,
Thank you.
okay. Well, to everybody who stayed with us, thanks a lot for this, really. And for coming here every Sunday morning, for having your coffee or tea on Sunday morning with Timothy and me. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. We hope to see you again next Sunday morning as well. And of course, if you cannot watch the briefing in real time, you can watch them on LinkedIn and also YouTube because they are recorded. The links are the same, so you don't have to go searching for links. And then I also want to say thank you very much to our sponsors, wonderful sponsors. They are Kanchu, Kanagawa Chuo Jutaku, or Kanchu. You can find them at kanchu.com, and Houze Inc. You can find them at houze.co.jp with James Howell and Hana Howell. If you have any projects in mind about in the fields of real estate, reach out to them and talk with them. Timothy, thank you very
Also,
much. Yes.
just one final point, if you don't mind, Maya. For those of you in the audience who would like to have a kind of a transcript, it's not a transcript, it's a kind of synopsis of what we talked about. Please let us know. We distribute this for free in several ways. If you sign up for our newsletter, it's not quite a newsletter, it's basically just the synopsis. You get that. You're the first to get the synopsis that's being sent out. And then Maya loads it up on LinkedIn, and then it's loaded up on the webpage as well. But if you want it first and freshest, sign up for our newsletter. Either write to me or Maya through my email or on LinkedIn, and we'll put you on the list. It doesn't cost you anything.
No, it doesn't. Well, thanks a lot for this. Give us a call, give us an email, or send us a message on LinkedIn if you need the synopsis straight into your inbox, and you'll have it there as well. Okay, thank you, Timothy. All
Thank
the
you very much,
best.
Maya. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great Sunday and also a bright new week, a wonderful week. And I hope that if you have already prepared for the holidays and have started them, have a wonderful a wonderful holiday season.
Woohoo!